Hi, everyone. My name is Natasha Selvaraj. I'm a real estate attorney at Berlin Patton Ebling. Thank you all for being here. We love being able to sponsor things like that, and we love when people are learning about all of the wonderful things that we have in our community, especially from people who know it better than anybody else. So glad to have you all here. For those of you who don't know me or don't know the firm, Berlin Patton Ebling is a full-service real estate law firm. We have 6 office locations going from Tampa and St. Pete all the way down to Bonita Springs. We have close to 30 attorneys now who do everything from real estate to litigation, estate planning as well. So if you do have customers who are coming in from another state, that happens every once in a while, and need estate planning documents updated or have questions about what they need to do to make sure that they have the same protections here that they did in whatever state they're coming from, we're happy to help with that. And of course, happy to assist with any real estate questions you have, whether it's before you go under contract and you have those legal questions that people have from time to time, happy to answer those or help navigate through the closing process as well. Charlotte, who you haven't met, I highly recommend that you meet, is collecting business cards, and we're going to do a drawing. So if you have one from her, she'll take that from you and do a drawing at the end of the class. But I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.
Yes, if I don't have your card, just raise your hand, I'll just come by and pick it up, and then we'll do a drawing, and then come and see me after the class for your drawing. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, well, today we're gonna try to make this as casual as possible. Stacy, probably she is casual, so I'm gonna go with you there. It's gonna be a conversation type of event. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand and we'll try to get somebody else to ask it, but if not, you might just have to shout it and I'll repeat it and put it on for our hybrid folks here as well. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right in, and we're gonna let each of them introduce themselves. So we'll start with you, Stacy. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Is this like a word? Tell my social security number or?
Let
me get that down.
You tell as many details as you want.
My name is Stacy Haas. I currently work for Michael Saunders and Company. I've been selling real estate for 16 years. Before that, I had my own interior design business, so it was a really good fit and to switch over. I have 2 amazing kids, 2 great son-in-laws, and a G baby, and I'm getting a grand girl. So for those of you that do not have grandchildren, as soon as the boy was born, I looked at my daughter and she goes, I know, you love him more than us. And I said, I do. It's a whole other level. So I love what I do, but I love my personal life too. So that's me.
As you can give the dream and be back too. That's part of it.
That's true.
So, Steve, how about you?
So I tell my children that I like the dogs better than I like them. They say, that's okay, Dad, because we like the dogs better and we like you too. So I don't know about the champagne part yet. So I'm Steve Adrian with Coldwell Banker. Years ago, I was a Marine officer. After that, I was a golf professional for right at 20 years. I'm still a golf professional. I keep my card, in other words. I'm now a retired life member of the PGA. 2004, I left that business and went into real estate and have been doing this ever since.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to jump right into some of the questions that we have on the agenda. As a top producer, what steps did you take to kind of start getting into the golf community? I guess world. Was it something? Do you live in the golf club? Do you specialize in it because you're joined the club, or do you start networking? How did you begin your time in the golf world? Either or.
Go ahead.
Well, obviously, having been a golf professional all that time, it was a natural fit. I probably would have never come into the business if I didn't already have a book of business, so to speak. I was the golf professional at TPC at Prestantia and also at the Oaks. So when I left that business, I immediately, of course, marketed to that group and have continued to do that. So it was just a natural fit for me.
I think I've lived in golf course communities, but I think when you look at Florida and why people move to our area, you always have to remember you're not selling a home, you're selling a lifestyle. And so with that, yeah, you have the beach, but when you've got somebody who's interested in golf, it's really nice to be able to sell the community as well. So you can make changes in a home and you can, alter it, but the community is the community. And I will say too, when you're excellent at anything, you should be the resident expert. You should know all the information about, literally in the concession, people call me like I am the membership director. I kid you not. And so you've always got to update everything and always know what's going on. But you want to be that value that people call you for information instead of calling someone else. So that's what I think about trying to get involved.
For worst case, if you don't know, you know who to contact, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so awesome. Okay. What would you say the biggest challenges are in selling or listing properties in some of the golf communities in our area?
The biggest challenges, I guess, is the cost of the club. If they are not golfing a lot, they start weighing that against, do I really want to spend the money if I have to? And of course, it's a little different depending on where you're at. If you're in Lakewood Ranch, you can choose to be a member or not be a member. If you're in the Oaks, you don't have a choice. So it becomes a more difficult situation there. If you're in, some of the places, Stony Brook, Heritage Oaks, places like that, it's a bundled community. So they have no choice. So you're fighting that sometimes if they're not big golfers there. So that's probably the biggest challenge, there. You have competition between which course is better or which courses they like better, or which is a country club, which is a golf club, that type of thing. So.
Could you define kind of the difference between the country club and the golf club?
Well, for example, and then of course I do a lot of business in both TPC and the Oaks. So the Oaks is a country club, TPC is a golf club, meaning that with a country club, we usually define that as having, not just golf. So they have tennis and fitness and a lot of dining. So a lot of things that have absolutely nothing to do with golf. When you're in a golf club, primarily, most of the social things revolve around the golf things. Okay, so that's more of a golf club type of situation. Usually it's going to be less expensive at a golf club versus a country club, but again, it tends to offer a little bit less.
PPC is more of the golf versus the country club.
Yes.
Yeah, more limited dining. They don't have fitness, they don't have tennis, pickleball, any of that sort of thing. So it's golf and some dining, and that's about it.
The only thing I would say is, you talked about the fees. So I use that to an advantage, because what happens is, especially when you're talking about bundled golf communities, some of the, depending on where they live, they have to be a golf member. So say you buy a condo in a bundled community, you might be paying $900 a month on average. And they're like, oh, well, I don't golf, so this seems silly. So then they sell. So then they buy, so then they sell, so then they move around. So I find it enjoyable.
Do they buy not, they know what they're going to sell, they just find themselves not using the amenities and they decide to sell?
It's kind of like you have the idea of what you want your life to look like, and then you have the actual implementation of your life. So people come here and they're like, I'm going to golf, I'm going to be a handicap, two handicap, and then it just doesn't work out. So then they transition and do something else.
Gotcha. Yeah, we hear that at the beach too. Like, we're gonna go to the beach all the time, you can be within 10 miles or 10 minutes. of the
Exactly.
beach, and then they don't go when you get here. It's fun. So what does your typical buyer look like for the golf communities right now? Has that changed over the last few years with COVID? Has that affected the golf community lifestyle? It seems like from what I've seen in some of the clubs, they were struggling or trying to get membership, and then all of a sudden COVID hit and you have a 50-person waiting list to get on. And is that something that's coming into play for some of the buyers you guys are working with or have worked with in the last few years?
Yes.
Yeah, so COVID, from a grand scale, I mean, COVID rescued golf, you know, golf was on the decline, all that being relative. I mean, you know, when you go from, 2 million people to, 1,950,000, it's not as big a deal. But you had places down in Naples and even here that were begging people to be members, and all of a sudden they've got a 7-year waiting list. And on that note, all the clubs in Naples are full, and so that we're not all full at this point, but that has helped Sarasota, in my opinion, because I've had people come up from there and say, "Oh, I can't get into Gray Oaks for 7 years. I can't get into there for 8 years." So that's been a help, but I would say also the difference buyer is a lot more families came down during COVID, so. The usual buyer here was the older retired person, but now for the golf communities that I deal in. But now it's we've had a lot more families come into there, and they have more time. A lot more parents or people are able to work from home, and they're able to work on their own hours, so they can get out and play golf now and go back and finish up the work at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So they can't do, their hours are much more flexible post-COVID, because they're not having to go into the office as much, even though that's shifting back around a little bit now. Good amount.
That's always been the hard thing with golf in general, is the time it takes to play, and that's why golf has kind of been on the decline, and now it's kind of made that V and it's going back up. Part of the excuse, I don't play as much as I want. Awesome. So is there a particular club in the area that's your favorite when you're selling? I guess let's put it this way, maybe amenities wise, but also, homes. They're all kind of similar in that regard, but which is your favorite golf community that you have the pleasure of selling?
Well, I think that if you narrow it to one, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I think there's advantages to all the golf clubs. It just depends. So the concession people would say is the most difficult, other than their par 3. But Lakewood Ranch Country Club, you're going to have 3 18 holes. So there's an advantage there. Then you've got the Ritz. So then if you're a Ritz golf member, you also get the beach club. So I think it's really about knowing and understanding what the memberships are for all the golf clubs, so that you can, what do I want to say? Explain based on what their needs are instead of your own, if that makes sense. But all of those have waiting lists now. So that's the thing.
Well, personally, what's your favorite? If you were moving somewhere, which community? That was the gist.
Oh, is that what? I mean, I like all of them. They're all different.
Yeah.
Right? They're all different. Like, I have a listing in Prestantia right now. It went under contract. He did not bring me the buyer. He was supposed to, but he didn't. But they're all, the older communities have the nice large trees and everything, but some of the houses have been previously enjoyed and really need to be renovated a bit. They've been loved a little too much, if you will. So there's that, but then the newer communities, they're still building, and that there's, but not a lot of lots available. I like all of them. They all have their own flavor, if you will.
Okay.
I've moved like 20 times, so
Wow.
I'm not the right person to ask.
Steve.
Politically correct, good job. So, and I'm gonna say politically correct, I'll tell you my top 3 golf courses that I enjoy playing. The Eagle course at the Oaks Club, the Rich Carlton course, and Legacy actually are my 3 favorite layouts in Sarasota. So there you go.
Awesome.
For personally playing.
Well, when you were mentioning something, Stacy, I kind of made a note about the tee times, and I know that's a big factor. You have the really heavy golfers coming to the area. That conversation comes up about what's the membership like, how many golf courses do they have, how quickly can I get a tee time? So can one of you guys speak to kind of how that conversation plays out in your interaction with the buyer, and kind of guiding them where they should go and how that kind of plays out?
So I headed that off in the very beginning. I have a golf home questionnaire that I send to every buyer. And no, I'm not sending you a copy of it. But by that questionnaire, I can usually narrow it down to 3 clubs and usually 2 clubs. A lot of times I do 3 just so they don't think I'm trying to push them in any particular direction. But one of the questions is, how often do you play? And that speaks to the tee times, availability of the golf course. I mean, you can go to places like, you can go to Venice Golf and Country Club and they do 48,000 rounds a year on 18 holes. You go to the Oaks that does about 45,000 rounds on 36 holes in a year. You can go to TPC, which does about 60,000 rounds a year on 36 holes. So that just gives you some idea of the availability. I'm also going to want to find out about their playing style. How far do they drive the ball? What are their difficulties on the golf course? What are their best parts of their golf game? All that sort of thing. So then I can really kind of custom fit. I don't want to take a guy that hits the ball 300 yards, doesn't know where it's going, and put him on Mission Creek. He's going to hate life. Especially the first 5 holes there. But at the same time, I don't want to take a short hitter and put him on a very long golf course. They may love the house and they love the club, but they're going to hate playing golf there, and they're going to eventually blame me for that. So at some point.
Not their personal game.
No, it's never you.
Yeah.
It's always somebody else, especially in golf.
David, can you touch on that at all?
If I have questions like that, I call Steve.
Yeah. Does he share?
I'm up here like, why am I on this panel? What we're talking about, like how far you can drive. I sell the
I will
lifestyle.
share my phone number if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get you that question.
Have you shared the resource, the questionnaire with you?
No,
No.
I'm the giver, Steve's not.
No, I do have a question
Fine,
about
yeah.
resources later, and we'll circle back to that. Okay, just to switch gears a little bit, just to kind of go more so into your personal business and things like that. As a top producer, I mean, how are you guys balancing working on your business and versus like in your business, kind of continuing to help it grow while also kind of maintaining everything you got going on in the now. I know you mentioned, Steve, earlier just a few minutes ago before we started that it's been a better year this year than last year. I mean, how does that continue? I mean, how do you balance that, I guess?
With a lot of support, a great, starting right from the top, our brokerage is wonderful and get a lot of support there, gives me a lot of flexibility and marketing support. But I also really think it's important, and it's hard to bite the bullet, but you need to have an assistant or a team to work with, because what happens a lot of times is, you do what you need to do to build your business, and then the business comes in and you're busy taking care of the business and you don't have time to do those things that you were doing that built the business. So you need somebody you got to have, somebody in the office while you're out doing what you do best. You can't be all things to all people. So, bite the bullet, hire an assistant and trust them to help you is my opinion there. You can't do it all by yourself.
Your turn.
My turn?
Your turn.
I always say this, everybody needs a Sierra. So she is my operations coordinator. We've been together 4.5 years. I'm the same way. Like, you cannot be all things. You cannot be in all places. So it is so important to have a team member with you that can do the things that you can't do, or cohesively work together. Like, marketing is not I don't enjoy marketing. It's just not my thing. So like, she does all of that for me and it's amazing. So that's extremely important. Then when you do that, like as far as working on your business, sending out postcards, doing the weekly e-blast to people, that can be a continual pipeline. And then when you're talking about working in your business, those are all the transactions that I'm working on currently. That's how I think of it. And then I really try to reach 5 to 10 other people per day, reaching out, just a text message. Hey, we're talking back people, was just thinking about when we did such and such, because people just want to know you care. That's really what it's about. And so when I look at my business, I think we ran a statistic And I think in 2022, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 70% of my business was repeat. That's where like I got people that I've done 15 transactions with. That's doing exceptional service, following up, keeping in touch and doing it again. However, it works for you. Like I'm not the girl that brings you a pie on Thanksgiving. That's just not me. But whatever works for them.
So your customers aren't expecting a pie on Thanksgiving, so.
No.
Just they like working with you, they come back to you numerous times and it obviously it's working, so.
Yeah.
There's no one size fits all type of situations here.
Correct.
That's awesome. What are 3 of your top tools, websites or apps that you can't live without right now and why? Business related, personal, anything. Steve doesn't know what apps are.
We're like a different generation. I don't.
But you do have a phone.
Okay,
That has things
so-
on it that you use.
Right. I mean, I have the apps. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. But I've never posted on that ever. Because I don't know how, it's just not my thing.
The Sierra doing.
Yeah, Sierra does it, and I am pretty nice on my posts.
So
Because of her.
You know it, but you.
So what are you using? Are you listening to audiobooks? If you're using anything at all, any tools or websites, anything you're doing for business?
Oh, you mean like professional
Anything.
growth?
Yeah, anything. Professional mindset, business
Well, I
development.
definitely think that's important for sure. I mean, I listen to motivational speakers all the time. Right now, the 2 books that I'm reading right now, it's Hope That Never Fails by Joseph Prince and Life Force by Tony Robbins. And that's, you've got to look at people that inspire you so that you can be an inspiration to others or whatever it is that keeps you motivated. I think it's really important. And so every day, I always tell my kids, like, you will learn more from your failures than your successes, because every time you make a mistake, I always say, like, I fall 7 times, but I get back up. That's the key. We're going to mess up. We're going to say things we shouldn't have. We're going to say things that we should have said a different way or better. But I always go back and reflect. And instead of beating myself up, just think, what could I have done differently? Or y'all, could I have done anything different? Because sometimes it's just personalities and things like that and styles. But that's what I do always.
Okay. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I do this same, self-help books or, motivation books, things like that. I'm reading right now, Mastery is one of them, and the other is Extreme Ownership, which is written by a couple of Navy SEALs and stuff. But yeah, I'm not one to read or listen to stuff unless it's helping me move forward. I don't do it for relaxation or anything like that, So otherwise, the apps, I mean, I do the Facebook.
Not Facebook, it's not Facebook.
But I have the same thing, Joni, my teammate, works actually for us remotely. And she handles, makes sure what I do on the Facebook will go to the Instagram and the LinkedIn.
And the Twitter.
And the Twitter, oh yeah, the Twitter, and I guess you got the whole, what's the other thing, what's the new one, the
TikTok.
yeah.
Oh, he was dancing.
So anyway, that'll go viral.
See, now
Well, on the same token of professional development, with the concept of a real estate coach, I mean, is that something you guys did early in your career, or have you ever had a real estate coach? Would you recommend one? Give us some thoughts on coaching for real estate.
I never did. I think it's probably good for some people. I mean, you need to have, I don't have balance in my life. I don't look for it. I mean, I love working. I'll never be, I'm at the age now, I'll never be able to compete on a high level as a great athlete ever again. But the business is my competition. So I love it. I enjoy it. I live for that. But if you're not driven that way, you need some accountability. So some of the programs out there, the coaches and stuff, it's good. They have weekly calls, and my teammate Wendy, she has a monthly call with her coach, and he holds her accountable. How did you make this many calls every day? Did you do this every day? Did you do that every day? And she's been in the business for 20 years, but it helps her. So you just got to kind of find what works best for you there. So it's, yeah. So no, I don't have a coach.
That's okay. Good to hear. Stacey, how did you?
I would say the same thing. I do not have a coach. I've never had a coach. I think at the end of the day, it's whatever's going to inspire you and motivate you. So based on the way I'm wired and my personality, like nobody can outperform me. Nobody can put more pressure on me than I do. So I don't happen to need the motivation. But if you do, you should do it. Absolutely. Sometimes, I have people are challenging, and we can kind of get beaten down sometimes where people are coming at us, and it's really not about the transaction. It's about all these other things. I always say the problem is not the problem. So sometimes when we're getting slammed and it's a bad day, it's good to have somebody. I definitely call somebody and unload, like, okay, here's what just transpired. I don't understand this conversation. And I have that more than a coach, which is somebody that I trust and admire and value their opinion. I have more of that than I do necessarily a coach that I use on a case-by-case basis.
So sort of like an accountability partner.
Exactly.
Type of situation.
Exactly,
So-
absolutely. And I have a phenomenal broker. Best broker I've ever had. She's absolutely fabulous.
And she's on top of it with you.
Really on top of it. Really on top of it. Yeah.
Broker's better than your broker.
Steve,
She's here. Is your broker here?
I feel like if we I think you might lose.
Not taking the chance.
I thought she was taking pictures of me.
Well,
Probably is. But that's-
so you kind of touched on a little bit, not about marketing, like you hate marketing, but I'm not gonna ask the marketing.
Did I say hate? I think I said I prefer not
You
to.
prefer not, yeah, so you do market your properties, obviously, somebody does, but in terms of marketing, what are your thoughts on kind of the best ways to market some of these golf community properties? I mean, outside of obviously MLS, it's gonna put you on the spot, there's more to it than that. What are you guys doing outside of just putting on MLS to market these properties to the world?
Facebook.
Yeah.
It's a change, it's a very changed world. I was a marketing, well, not was, I was graduated from marketing degree from the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. But
You're milking it this year.
So but it's changed, it used to be you could do the postcards and the newspaper a little bit, now, so now you got to do, the postcards, the newspaper, you've got to do the magazines, you've got to do the Facebook and the Instagram and the TikTok. It's just, so you've got to go out in so many directions. It's about the number of touches. When I'm talking to people, like my teammate Wendy, her husband is a rep with Pfizer. Okay, so they know, as a pharmaceutical rep, they know if they make 100 calls to doctors, they're going to get 10 appointments. Out of those 10 appointments, they're going to get 4 sales. Well, in real estate, we don't know who to go to. Everybody, you pick up the phone book, everybody in that phone book is your potential customer for you. So you can't really be targeted. So you have to go with the shotgun approach. And that's a little bit of everything. The more people you reach, the better. And there's no way to prove that it worked, because if I'm doing a Facebook marketing campaign in Chicago metropolitan area, it might actually have brought a buyer for the house that I'm advertising, but by the time it gets to me, who knows, that person knew somebody in Sarasota who had an agent that said, we'll call my friend Stacy, she does a great job for you. So by the time Stacy comes to show this house, she doesn't know that they saw my Facebook ad up there, so it's just one of those things that it's just blind faith. You have to do it there. So that's kind of the approach that we have is big as we can.
Stacy?
As far as marketing, obviously there's twofold. There's marketing your properties and then there's marketing yourself. And what do those two things look like and how do you balance it? We have been successful, really successful when you go back to the golf communities, farming it out, and people want information. Residents want information. So we do a lot of direct mail with statistics on it, with also the history of success on it. And our turnover rate, like calls that we get, is so high just based on that. You do have to do the social media as well, along with the digital that we do a lot with the e-blasts, and then the same kind of things that you're talking about. The thing is with marketing, and we do magazine as well. We found, this is again just our personal experience and analysis, we found a higher success rate with magazines per se than newspaper. You have to do the newspaper, but the magazine's got a longer shelf life for people, so they'll go back. It is challenging in real estate to really, like, I'll ask people, how did you hear from me? They're like, I don't know, I've just heard you. I've just heard about you. So a lot of people can't even though I just try to dial it back so that I can quantify what is actually working and what is not. It's like you said, sometimes it's like this whole paradigm of how they get to you, but it generally goes back to some form of marketing and just getting your name out there consistently. And consistency is the key to everything. You have to do it consistently, year after year, month after month. And then it will be just like a Kleenex tissue. And everybody says, hand me a Kleenex. It's a facial tissue. But because of their marketing and everything, and that's how a lot of realtors are. I'm not saying I'm there yet because I'm not, but that's, I think, our goal.
The branding
The branding aspect, absolutely.
And on top of that, you know, when you look at your marketing, what is it for? You know, marketing in the newspaper or local newspaper and local magazines and that sort of thing. We do that. I don't do that to sell that house that I'm marketing there. I do that to get listings. It's not going to sell the house. It's just like an open house.
Are your sellers listening to you right now, Steve?
They know that. They know we're looking for, for listings there because they see how you're marketing their house. And people see how you're marketing houses, and it's just brand recognition. It's less than 5% of the time do you sell a house on an open house, but people still want you to do it. You sell the house down the street because you get a buyer that wants to buy something, they don't buy that house. Same thing with marketing. That, you know, when the company does marketing in the newspaper, it's just to get the phone to ring. Again, less than 5% of the time is the house that the person calls the Michael Saunders or Coldwell Banker office ever shown. But they're able to say, oh, that house doesn't meet your needs, but we do have X, X, and X, okay, or X, Y, and Z, whatever. So, keep in mind what you're doing it for. All right, brand recognition, get listings, to get buyers, and then be very specific about your marketing in that respect.
So where's the majority of your business coming from these days? And obviously you've been in the business, both of you, for more than a handful of years. This is a business where it takes time to develop and have a book of business that continues to come back to you 15 times, and that doesn't happen your first year. Where's the majority of the business coming from now, and why do you think that is? Please first.
Well, I said past business, but every call is an opportunity for success. So that means when my phone rings, based on exactly what Steve said, they might be calling about house A, and house A doesn't work out. oh, are you working with a realtor? You start developing a rapport. And then you say, well, what about if I show you X, Y, and Z? And I'm gonna give you a perfect example, a living example. I had a guy call on one of my listings and we put an offer on, he put an offer on it, but then I had another offer come in. So it was a multiple offer situation and they didn't get the house because the deal for my seller, the other deal was better. But I had developed enough rapport with the couple that I retained them as a client or as a customer. So I'm showing them homes, blah, blah, blah. Well, today at 4 o'clock, I've never met him in person. I've never met her. Today at 4 o'clock, I get to show them their $1.4 million house, of which they've never seen. Why? Because once you have that respect, you can do a FaceTime, you can walk through, and I've earned the respect and knowledge that they've come to me as their resource. So they trust me enough to purchase that home. And we've been under contract 3 weeks. So I think don't ever forget how important it is to answer your phone, to smile while you do it, have a good attitude, and really listen, ask a lot of questions. I listen more than I talk, actually, because when you ask the proper questions, they think you care and you are gaining information out of them so that you can tell them which golf course that they can drive 350 yards with. So anyway, so I think all those things are really important.
Okay. Steve, where's the majority of your business coming from today?
Majority is probably 95% is referral, you know, but obviously you hit that after a certain length of time, you know, you're able to build your business to that point. You know, when you haven't been in the business very long, you can't do that. Other than that, gosh, really, that's where it comes from. Just
I had a feeling you both were gonna kind of say that.
Yeah.
So I did have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you guys are doing for your past customers that are probably referring you to business, that's promoting them, you know, handing a referral out or sending your name to somebody that they know that's from the community area?
well, and Stacy touched on this a while ago. So above my desk, I have 3 gigantic C's right there, and they stand for constant, consistent communication. So I'm constantly in contact with past customers all the time, whether it's as Stacy mentioned earlier, whether it's just a text to say, hey, I was thinking about you the other day, how you doing? Hey, or when I see on the Facebook that they have that something's happened, and maybe it shows, hey, they had a hole-in-one, or they had a grandchild, or they got a new dog. You know, I shoot them a text, say, hey, I saw your new puppy or whatever. I'm not just responding to them on the Facebook. I'm reaching out to them with a text or, you know, phone call, even better. Now I'm pretty busy, so I don't have time necessarily to have 10 or 12 conversations a day, but I got time to shoot them a text, and at least they know I'm thinking about it. You know, it's not some canned thing that I'm sending out a mass text. You know, I take well, actually 3 holidays a year that are kind of off holidays, and I will send out text to every person in my database, just a quick little message. Now, some of it I'll copy and paste, but then I'll add something about them. But it takes me probably 3 hours to get through at least that, to get through that. But it's, you know, they know you're thinking about it there. So
There's actually an app called Easy Texting.
yeah,
We should talk after.
an app.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you use it on the
It's
Facebook?
It's the broker.
How are you doing that?
Yeah, I don't want it to be, but I don't want it to be canned. I want a particular message to each one. So, you know, it's gonna say, hey, John and Dave, John and Martha, you know, saw you, good to see you at the club last week, blah, 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 you know, so just a little something, and then it may be canned the rest of it, but at least I'm saying something special about our relationship, not just a canned text from an app.
Well, there's an app that you probably could say. That might be one of your top 3 at the end of the day.
There we go.
Stacy, how about you? What do you?
I already
do?
forgot what the question was.
Anything in particular that you're doing, for past customers that you know, on a regular basis, that's kind of promoting them to send, you know, referrals your way?
I don't think I mean, I think I just do the touches, honestly, and check up on people. And like after Ian, I checked up on a lot of people. Some people had a lot of damage and I went over and helped. Just really being the hands and feet, really. And doing the text message. And, you know, we started doing things like a closing gifts, and people that really love their home will make a photograph book, like in Shutterfly and write. Actually, I don't do it. Sierra does it. She's fabulous at it because everybody needs a Sierra. But I mean, I came up with the idea, but do those people that want it on their coffee table, like they're sad that they sold their house. So doing sentimental gifts like that, I think really mean a lot to people as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm giving out all my ideas. What have you given?
Hey,
This is what panels are all about, with you guys, the secrets, and then there's a lot more top producers in the market. So it's like a couple questions on kind of self-reflecting on your career. What do you think the biggest challenge has been that you've faced thus far, and how did you overcome it?
You know, I'd say overall in the business, the biggest challenge is to, you know, stay even and not succumb to the ups and downs of the business. You know, I mean, you're gonna have some people that you think these people are like my best friends in the world, and they just listed with somebody else. You know,
I'm sorry about
it
that.
happens every once in a while. I'm like, I understand, you know, Stacy came in and she gave you all her secrets and she uses apps. So, you know, and you know, eventually you dig down and either you didn't do something correct or there was a reason, you know, they had a friend, whatever, and it was a connection they had to use. They didn't have any choice, whatever. But, you know, you can easily go down the rabbit hole when that happens. And you can't let it, you know, it's good to learn, like she tells her children, you learn more from your mistakes or your failures than your successes. And that's so true. I mean, I just sold a condo a couple of days ago that the lady was a huge producer in Cleveland, like number one producer in Cleveland during her time there. And she said, you know, you met with us 15 years ago about listing our house and we didn't list with you. And she said, you want to know why? I said, of course I want to know why. I said, well, you came in and it was after golf or whatever, and we just told you to stop by real quick, and you did, and you talked mainly to Dick. You weren't talking to me, and we were talking golf. Of course, he grabbed me, so it wasn't like I was, you know, ignoring her, but she felt like I spoke mainly to Dick and kind of ignored her. And I'm like, and she goes, that was, you know, 15 years ago. Since then, I see your business and I see what you've done and I see how you learned from that. But there's always little things, and you find out, even when if I lose a listing, you know, I ask the people, I don't care. I say, hey, was there something I could have done different to have earned your business? I'm trying to improve every day. And people are great about doing it. They'll respond and go, you know, you did a fabulous job. They happen to come in with 2 people, your partner wasn't with you, maybe that would have made a difference if we had seen both of you, something like that. But you listen and you learn. People are willing to tell you why they didn't go with you, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so but anyway, I digress there. The toughest part of the business is maintaining that evenness and not going down the rabbit hole and not getting too excited about, you know, to me, it's like, okay, I just got the $3 million sale. Boom, I'm happy. All right, next. That's done.
That's right.
Next,
Yeah.
next.
Do you celebrate the win though?
No.
The win
Well, the $3 million sale.
for the moment,
Yeah.
but then it's on to the next.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on to the next. I mean, it's just like, you know, when I play football, you celebrate that evening and then you're training for the next game. That's what, anyways.
So I agree. This industry can be so emotional up and down, and you have to be like this. Number one, you're dealing with a lot of times they're most expensive asset, and you're dealing with personal relationships. So they're already like this. Like I say this all the time to people when you're talking about the valuation of a home. I understand what you're saying, and I love your home as well. Although there's a difference between emotional equity and actual equity, because people have emotional attachments. So like, their kitchen sink is better than your kitchen sink, and it goes on and on and on. And so it's our job to kind of keep them on the right track. My biggest challenge in this industry is integrity or lack thereof. And what I mean by that is we're obviously all flawed people, and people, when they articulate something in their head, they might think one thing, but they say another thing. And then I take the information that's been translated to me, and I go and I give it to my customers. And then they are offended, or they don't like it, or, well, that doesn't make sense. So then I go back, and then that person has changed the story. And then I got to go back and I've got to give an altered conversation. And the challenge is not losing that person's integrity with me, understanding that I'm just relaying verbatim what somebody has told me. And for me, that's a challenge, because I've actually lost clients who are like, yeah, but you said this, and then you said this. And I'm saying, well, yes, because that's what was articulated to me. And I apologize. But at this point, I'm just the mouthpiece and relaying the conversation. So that, like, just because I'm goal oriented for my clients, I want to meet their needs and things like that. And when there's a poor communication between the agents and their customers, it gets frustrating a little bit. So you have to take it and you're like, well, I say this too, like, whether you have a deal or lose a deal, that doesn't make or break whether I eat dinner tomorrow. So you just kind of got to take it with that attitude and just move forward.
So like a little bit of the professionalism in the business, and someone's saying things and maybe it's not completely
Correct.
right.
Correct.
They're just kind of answering the question without doing their due diligence on their end.
I will say that COVID has done a lot of things to the area. And obviously, a lot of people have gotten their license. That's a great thing. There's no problem with that. I would challenge everyone, if you do have a new license, like, you have to be your best advocate. What do I mean by that? Try to find out the answer yourself by doing your own research before asking somebody else to spoon feed it, because you won't learn that way. So I've done a couple of deals this year where it was their first transaction. They didn't understand the contract. They understood nothing about the transaction. And I had to help them, which is fine, but that's a disservice for your customer. So I think it's really important.
Absolutely. Well, and kind of piggybacking off that a little bit regarding newer to the business, for those that may be watching or maybe in the room here, what advice would you give someone that's new to the business or struggling to grow their current real estate business right now in today's market?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm always amazed by, there's a lot of agents out there that are able to work the whole city or the whole county. I don't know how you can do that. Personally, I would find a farm area, work that area, be an expert in that area, rather than trying to be all things to all people. I mean, I see marketing where people go, oh, well, we're a golf course, golf to golf, and residential specialist. Well, you really can't be a specialist in all that and be very good at it. So pick your farm area. I do the golf communities only. I mean, I only farm really the Oaks and TPC. That's about 1,500 homes. And I work those areas hard, Now, I do about 60, probably 65% of my business in those two communities, and the other percentage are referrals from those communities. So I end up with 2 or 3 big waterfront deals a year, and maybe some other, smaller things that, again, were referrals from those people. But concentrate, don't try to, when you get a phone call, you're so desperate. If you're new, you're so desperate that they want something in South Tampa.
Yeah.
And you're going, I got a call from an agent the other day, it's on the other coast, wants to
Yeah.
bring their customer over to see our listing that we
So
have. And I'm like, you're
frustrating.
coming over with them? Are you referring them over, or you're coming over? Oh, no, I'm coming over.
But you open the door for me because I can.
Right, well, you got it, exactly. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. So don't be so, refer that business out. You're not doing your buyer a service to go up to South Tampa, which you don't even know where you're going. Okay, so that would be one thing, and people can smell desperation. So I understood you might be desperate for that next paycheck, but you can't let them see it or feel it. And if you do the right thing for your people every time, even if you don't get their business, it's going to eventually pay off. This isn't a business you're going to make a living, going to make a good living in the first couple of years, probably, unless you might get really lucky. But really, you've got to get through about 7 years is your time to become that. That's your apprenticeship. Let's put it that way. After about 7 years, if you've done the business right, you should be on autopilot at that point. But I would stay focused for your farm area, and don't be desperate with your buyers. If you don't know the area, refer it out to somebody that does. And that'll pay off in kind.
I say what he says. No, he's so right. I mean, you cannot be all things to all people. So if you look at top performers in any industry, they bring it down to a micro level and not a macro level, right? So whatever your sweet spot is, whatever your 10 is, whatever you're passionate about, you start working that area, and you work it and you work it again, and ask for referrals. Ask. I cannot, I'll go on a listing presentation and I know they're going to talk to a couple other people, and I will ask them if they want me to sit in the other interviews with them and help them interview the other people. That's hilarious. Do I say it? I do. Do you know how many people where I'll get the business and they don't interview the other people? Right? Because it's all about, and you guys, it's about having fun. It's about laughing. We are not neuroscientists here. You know what I mean? It's not brain surgery. We should have fun while we do it. We should make the process fun for our customers and keep going home. But I want to get back to something that, when we're talking about the emotional roller coaster, you said something. If somebody wrongs you or fires you, always be kind. I can tell you story after story where multi-million-dollar listing, it's always the realtor's problem. So you get canned. They didn't sell it with the new realtor, and they come begging me to take it back. All right, we're going to listen to you now. It wasn't you, but it was all because I was like, whatever I can do to help you out. So always take the high road, because it's a small town and somebody knows somebody who knows somebody. So just always be kind, always help out, and it'll always come back to you in some form or fashion.
Well, that's true. Kind of on the same line, we'll change it up a little bit. So looking back at your first year in the business, whenever that was, what was the biggest mistake you made, and what advice would you give yourself kind of today to correct that in some fashion? You do this first.
I did not have a usual year, my first year.
What year was it?
It was 2007 or 8? Seven. It was 2007. My first sale was 6.9 million.
Wow.
Okay.
You were one of those lucky ones.
I think it was a serendipitous situation. I think you get what you give out. I happened to get a listing, and I can negotiate and I can communicate. So it happened where I got a great opportunity for a listing. And when the buyer came in and bought it, at the end of the day, he was with somebody who had never sold another piece of real estate either, ironically. But she kept coming to me saying, what do I do about this? And what do I do about that? And what do you think happened? Listen, if you don't know the answer, you find somebody who does, you get your information, you go back and you supply the need, right? The people that are great in this world are problem solvers. The problem with the world is everybody wants to tell you the problem, right? You want to change the world, you be a solver and not just tell everybody what the problem is. So I was this guy's problem solver. He became my client. He's been my client for 15 years. I've done 15 deals with him, and he owns the Concession Golf Club. Don't ever underestimate who is on the other side of a transaction, okay? It wasn't that I poached him or anything like that. It was just that I found it, the doctors, I found this, I found that, and then it just kind of organically happened. But when I went through that, I remember people are like, that's not normal. And I'm like, really? That's not normal. I had no idea. It's not that I thought it was easy, okay? It's just that I didn't understand how amazing that was. Not that I didn't appreciate it, but for me and the type of personality I am, I don't sit on what I've done. I'm always looking forward to what I'm going to do next. So as soon as something goes pending, I like move it over. I was like, oh, I suck. I need another deal, right? That's because I'm a self-motivator, because it's about doing another one and another one. It's never about the money. It's really about meeting the goals of my clients. And that's what brings me joy. The money is just the overflow because of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure I cold called. I'm kidding.
So was
I'm not orthodox. I'm
was the
unorthodox.
listing you got at the beginning of your career, was it a referral from your prior business from design?
It was a referral. Yes, it was a referral from a friend who, you know, it's like, if you get the opportunity, what do you do with the opportunity? And I remember I asked somebody extremely successful, and I said, what's your greatest, you know, little nugget about success? And he said to me, he goes, it just takes one. Don't ever forget that. It just takes one to have another one, to have another one, and it's a building block. So I think that's it. I got an invitation and I sold them on me because I didn't have anything else. Right? I didn't have the experience, but I also backed it up with figuring out and learning how to be effective and intelligent and a go-to in this industry.
Awesome. What about you, Steve? I'll repeat the question.
Go ahead.
It was looking back at your first year of business, what was your biggest mistake, and what would you tell yourself to kind of correct that?
Probably a little bit of what I just said a moment ago, you know, trying to chase everything, you know, because you're like, oh, well, somebody called and they wanted you to help them with a rental. Oh, yeah, I can do that because, you know, they're going to rent for a while and then they'll be a buyer. And then, so I wasted a lot of time doing that when I should have just said, you know, here's a number for a rental agent, blah, blah, blah. So wasted time, a little bit of wasted time, but, you know, overall I didn't, you know, I think I did 7 million total, not 6.5 on my first deal that first year, but I was number 2 in the office for new people and stuff. So, you know, also the other thing I did do is when I went in, I committed to my first year, just personally committed to being in the office every day for the first year in the business, because you learn a lot just by osmosis of what's going on in the office. I haven't been, when was the last time I was in the office, Ellen? Yeah, exactly. I don't even have an office at the office there. So I don't go in the office anymore, but that first year, just being there, whether you're going to the coffee room or you're getting coffee or whatever, just hearing different things, talking to other agents about, you know, difficulties they've had or challenges they've had or negotiations they've had. It's helped. So I was in and every morning at 6 o'clock. I was first one in. I was the last one out many times, 9 or 10 at night. Now I would go out to showings from the office and all that, but I was there, committed to it for the first year. And that, I think that helped Louis a lot.
That's a military background.
Sorry.
No, it's awesome. That's great.
A couple more quick questions. I think these are a lot shorter, regarding golf in particular. We'll kind of circle back to the golf world. So obviously we talked earlier, there's a handful of clubs here that do require memberships. There's some that are more of a public setting, have homes inside, some clubs that have both. There's sections that are not membership driven and the other side is. Are you seeing a demand for a particular style, like whether it's requires a membership or does not? I mean, obviously there's a lot of new construction, a lot of the bundle communities, you know, those are selling very well, but they do require the golf membership. So seems like I'm answering the question here.
Well, for years, again, obviously I farm the oats, so I'll take the oats. For years, a lot of agents address the Oaks mandatory membership as a negative. I always approached it as a positive, but now it really is a positive because almost any decent club in town is full. So the only way you can get in is to buy.
Yeah.
So that's becoming much more desirable, if you will. Certainly not a negative that some people might have promoted it to be in the past there. So, yeah.
No, anything?
I say what he said.
The political.
He's right.
Yeah, but it's a way to get in. So if you got a customer that has to be in a club, you're gonna have to, you almost have to go to a mandatory membership, because I think Laurel Oaks probably got a 3-year wait, 2 or 3 year wait. TPC has 4 memberships available right now. That probably won't be available next week. All the keys full.
They're all full.
Yeah.
They're awful. I will just say this about the bundle community. It's kind of interesting because, you know, you've got Esplanade is one of those bundled communities, but then when they did, so Esplanade, Lakewood Ranch, and then they did Esplanade, Azario, one of the biggest complaints was the forced membership of golf. And so then they did Azario, and now it's like tomato, because half of that neighborhood has no golf in there. So now, because of COVID, you have this situation where everybody wants to golf. So I think, yeah, you just have to know your communities. And I think people go into golf and then they go out of golf, just like they go golf, beach, golf.
Faces of life.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
What are your top tips to start selling in one of these communities? If we wanted to say, I want to knock Steve Abbey off the throne in TPC.
Bring it on.
What are your tips to start, put your foot in the door in this community and start selling in one of these, not just those, but any golf community?
Again, I'm gonna go back to my 3 C's: constant, consistent communication.
Yeah.
All right. I twice a year in both the communities that I farm, I do about a 6-page newsletter that's got a lot of information in it. And I've done that for 16 years now, 17 years. And actually my teammate actually did that a little bit before me, but people will keep those newsletters. So when I say constant, consistent, communicate, constant is obvious. Consistent, if I said something different in this year's newsletter than I did in 2006 newsletter, they're going to bring it up. So you got to watch what you say all the time, and of course communication answers itself. So you just got to keep doing it. It's not going to happen after 2 mailings. It's not going to happen after 10 mailings. It's not going to happen after 20 mailings, but it'll happen. You just got to keep beating it up, and you're gonna, you got to have spend some money to make some money.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same thing. You got to do just listed, so then you have to do just sold, and you just have to keep farming, and then you'll just keep getting calls. I mean, I'm sure Steve has the same thing where, like, I've sold the same house 3 or 4 times. Like, that's just because of longevity, or, I'll have a listing, then I'll sell it to a different buyer. And then when that buyer goes to sell, they'll call me and not who they used on the purchase. Why? Because they came in and I sold the whole lifestyle about the golf course and they remember that. And they're like, oh, we want that. We want that.
And their agent didn't stay in touch. The community.
If you don't stay in touch, your buyer will be my listing. So.
Wow. Little challenge there.
So one quick thing about reciprocity, just because I know we have some courses in the area that do have reciprocity, other courses or maybe in the other areas. I mean, is that not a thing anymore? Have they gone away from?
They do it in the summertime,
Summertime only.
just to generate some cart revenue, and they're very selective about who they do it with now. TPC does offer a type of membership where you can use the other TPCs around the country, but it's not a good financial purchase for anybody. But no, locally, no, they don't have any reciprocity except a little bit in the summertime.
Okay. So I want to open it up to questions. I know Juliana had a question earlier that she wants to ask. I specifically didn't ask it. So we'll go ahead and open it up, and then I have one last question before we break. So.
Yeah, so I had mentioned to Derek earlier, when you're dealing with the golf communities that are a little bit older, like Palmer Ranch or in Venice, and you start hearing about rumors about them wanting to redo the golf course and kind of what that looks like. How do you prepare your buyer? Maybe when it's not in the formal stage. Obviously, I don't want to alarm my buyer necessarily if it's not in the minutes and on track. But if you have a pretty good feeling that that's something that it's mandatory membership, and you have a pretty good idea that that's going to happen, right? It needs to. It's a little bit older, and they want to keep it updated and compete with some of the other communities. How do you have that conversation with your buyer about possible assessments or?
You got this?
So
Even though I had an answer.
I'll be both.
Yeah. First, you need to know your customer. Are they coming from a club up north? Have they been in country clubs in their time period? If they have, then they know about these things. They know that a club's going to have assessments. Second, you need to know the club. If they're going to be at TPC or Lakewood Ranch or some of those places, they're not going to be assessed because they're not equity members. If they're going to be at the Oaks, places like that, they can be. There can be some assessments, but again, they know that most of them already know that's going to happen. So, but what you need to do is find out if they're interested in a particular club. Let's just, because I know the Oaks so well, let's just say it's the Oaks. So I'm able to tell the people, okay, the Oaks, the members have owned it for 20 years. During that time, there's only been $11,500 in what you would call assessments. But what they've also done with those assessments is they've added it to your equity. So you got some of that money back. Whereas again, knowing the people, if they were from up north and were at a club there, a lot of times you get a letter and you don't even live in the neighborhood up there. And they say, oh, by the way, we need a check for $40,000. And you just say bye-bye to your money. So they're used to assessments with that. And the other part of that is, you can prepare them and say, the club, this is a wonderful club. They're continually upgrading to keep up with the Joneses, so you've got to if you're not keeping up with your capital improvements, then you're falling behind, and then the whole club's going to go down because of that. So you just have to turn it as a positive that they aren't, they're financially conservative, but they do spend money when it's needed. That's all I go with.
Are you talking more about like bundled communities or specifically where you have to be a member?
So there's different HOAs, and part of one section of the HOA is
Right.
mandatory golf, the other one is
Right.
social,
Right.
right? So this particular person was looking to use it more for like investment. for
Right.
Rentals, have that.
So it's
So they
happening a
assess
lot
it.
right now because a lot of these HOAs are on the calendar year. So there's all this discussion about all the fees going up and what does that look like? What do transfer fees look like if there's 30-day rentals and whatnot? So I've run into this a lot lately. At the end of the day, I always say disclose, disclose, disclose. So you have to say, listen, nothing's final. Here's what they're proposing. It's going to be between here and here, the fee. This is a special assessment. It's going to be between here and here. But let me explain what you're going to get for that. And it's like you said, a lot of times what they're doing, especially I see with the condos and after Ian, they're trying to, in my opinion, cushion the reserves because insurance is going up and things like that. Some insurance has gone up 30% after Ian because why? Because they are paying out so much. So we've got to all pay in to kind of get the reserves up for insurance companies, blah, blah, blah. So I think, again, it's all about the way you present information, which is factual. But the spin is, let me explain to you why this is a good thing and why you want this and why it preserves your investment. I think that's always the approach.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of questions from Zoom. First thing to ask, is there a way to find golf communities or homes with a golf view on the MLS?
The golf view on the
So
MLS.
one of our Zoom questions was, is there a list of golf right there? Trying to see if I can find it.
Yes.
Is there a way to find golf communities or homes with golf view on the MLS? Yes, the answer is
Yeah.
yes.
The answer is yes. There's a drop down that you can put golf view. Now, that being said, a lot of realtors don't fill in the proper description. So sometimes you wipe away houses that actually have golf views. And number two, if it's new construction, they never put in there what view it is. You got to get a site map and kind of correspond them to each other.
What she said.
Yeah, he says what I say.
Go ahead.
Since you guys are selling in what sounds like from what you said so far, older communities, homes are 20, 30, 40 years old. What are you doing to prepare when you've got the listing to get those homes staged and updated? You recommend they put the money in up front, that they give money on the back end to get that buyer into that home? How do you prep your sellers for that dealing, even though they're beautiful communities, whatever, but they're older homes, a lot of people moving there like the new construction.
Mhm.
So how are you preparing your sellers for that?
Good.
So I think it depends on how realistic the seller is right now with the list price. Because there's a disconnect right now between unrenovated homes, in my opinion. And they still want these post-COVID prices, I'll call it. And reality hasn't set in, the interest rates and everything. So you have that honest conversation. So where did you want to list at? So if somebody is going to give me a pie in the sky list number, I would say back to them, okay, we can do that. But for you to get that amount, you have to understand that we have to invest and do X, Y, and Z. And it's going to cost you this amount for you to get that number. Some things are going to be in older communities. It's going to be structural stuff that you're not even going to want to undertake. So then you start getting creative on, and staging is really huge. The decor is huge with that. But then you start getting creative on what to do and what not to do, and incentives to the buyer as well. So you see what I'm saying? Like whether it's, you can say something like, listen, we planned on putting these quartz countertops in, we'll pay for it, we'll have it done with a contract prior to closing, so they don't have to deal with it. You can always like do some out of the box creative thinking to make it more palatable for a buyer. Because in the older communities, it's better lots generally, better location. So that's how you go, that's how I go around it.
Yeah, if, if, like, for example, the 25-year-old, you're looking at probably having to put a roof on pretty soon. A lot of people don't want to, we don't want to wait for the 6 months, 8 months it's going to take, to what we're going to wait till we get a roof on it before we list it. If they're not willing to put the roof on, and we don't want to wait for that, I would say get a good quote have it in hand on anything because buyers are gonna double the price. You know, they come in, they see a 3,500 square foot house, they go, tile roofs, they go, oh, that's gonna be 100,000. So they come in 100,000, say, well, actually, it's not. Here's our quote a week ago for, 45,000. So just be ready to make it realistic. Say, we understand it needs a new roof and we understand we need to negotiate on that a little bit, but here's what the real number is. Same thing with the porch countertops or whatever. Have a quote in hand is what I would say, if they're not willing to do some of that. And again, staging is important. And one thing that I think is overlooked in a lot of places, the old cleanliness is next to godliness. I mean, boy, I tell you, I've had some beautiful homes that weren't clean, that looked like crap, and I've had some crappy homes that were spotless and sold in a minute, so
It's true.
cleanliness. And the thing is, people, it's so funny, I'll digress here, but people's idea of cleanliness, there's two different things. I'll have customers that say, oh, we've been working all weekend, we're ready for that Monday showing, and I come in there and I'm like, what in the hell did the place look like before?
Right.
And then I have other people go, oh, the house is a mess. You just, no, you can't, I can't show, it's a mess. I'm like, look, I'll go get it ready ahead of time. Don't you worry about it. Make sure, I go in there like, okay, there's a sticky note on the refrigerator. Other than that, the place is spotless. So the person that had the house, they thought they cleaned all weekend. That's what they believe to be clean. Right. They're not just morons. That's their paradigm, and the other people, it's theirs too. So anyways, you got to
Would you recommend a cleaner instead of the owner that's-
Oh, absolutely.
I would recommend cataract removal.
Hey, Beverly, you have a question?
Yes, Steve, are you a member of different clubs? Is that a way for you to get access to people and also Stacy?
It is. I'm actually, I live in Perstancia, TPC, and I play there some as a PGA pro at the pleasure of the golf professional, but I am actually a member at the Oaks. And yes, I use that, as a way of meeting people and all. And so if you can do that and you are going to anyways, do it, join that club, enjoy the club, but also use it for marketing,
And Stacey, how about you?
I am a social member at Lakewood Ranch Country Club.
Okay.
That's it, but I never go, to be perfectly honest. I'm not a great networker.
Yeah, I go a lot. So, they see my face, I'm there for dinner and then I'm there playing golf or tennis or whatever. Yeah.
Is there a list of the golf communities with their fees and amenities?
No,
Only if you create it.
yeah.
So regarding our question from Nan on Zoom regarding the list of golf communities, the description of amenities, fees, buying insurance. She didn't think so, but she wanted to ask.
Yeah. You literally have to call every club. And then you have to call them regularly because they keep charging the fees. And what you don't want to do is give out the wrong information.
Absolutely. Or just check the last listing in there on MLS and just transfer it over.
I wouldn't try.
You talk to the head.
The
pro,
membership. The membership director, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Not an agent. So what are the demographics that people wanting the golf communities? Is it still mostly baby boomers, or we've got the younger generation gung ho on golf now? I don't-
Question regarding demographics of our buyer now, just for the Zoom.
I'm still getting baby boomers primarily there, so it's a little younger, like the ranch.
It's younger, it's young families, a lot of them. That want their kids to have golf lessons and tennis lessons and things like that, personal training. So runs the gamut.
Julia?
I'm originally from up north Ohio where everybody likes golf and they like tennis, but now I'm seeing pickleballers coming out of Woodward. Do you? Are clubs trying to accommodate those pickleballers, and where is a good? What do you suggest to marry the two? Because you're getting a lot of couples that one likes golf, one likes pickleball.
Most golf courses that have tennis courts have pickleball courts now. Correct. And if they don't, A pickleball court, all it is basically a tennis court without the side
Yeah.
lines. So, yeah, most of them have
Yeah.
them. And that's the other thing, it is a rage. There's like an unbelievable amount of public pickleball courts that have unveiled, like Longboat Key, it's big, whatever, but they've got one, there's gonna put another one. There's one at Pompano behind Robards Arena. Again, it's knowing all those things, the locations, so that you can tell people. So when you have a buyer that comes into town and you give them a buyer information packet, and you know that that's like their hotspot, then you can put in all the locations. But there's no one place to get that. You have to assimilate the information.
So like the one family member that could be members of the golf or country club, but pickleball is everywhere, so you don't necessarily.
Pickleball's everywhere, and it's also with some clubs. Correct.
So that question just to resume people was regarding pickleball and finding pickleball courts at some of those golf clubs. Most of them are converting, either converting a
adding.
court or adding a pickleball court just because it is such a hot sport in our area now. So I will say if you have a compliment, Steve, that you're always so helpful with membership info and golf info and showing the Oaks, so you have no problems there. Just make sure you at least show one of his homes while you're there. Were there any other questions on there, Jamie, that I'm missing? Do you?
I have one more.
Community, I was asked.
If somebody like wants to be in the country club, but they don't necessarily like all the, they lose their privacy because they have a lot of golfers kind of walking around and where in the course will you say kind of to keep it like, keep it more private or keep it away from if the home is right in the backyard? So
Well, first off, you need to look where the cart path is. That's where you get the most traffic and the problem. So if you're looking at listing a home that's right up on the golf path, it's not going to sell very quickly or for as much money. So just understand that. Otherwise, being on the golf course, if you want to be on the golf course, you give up some of your privacy. That's just a trade-off. But most golf communities have homes within them that also have preserved views or just lake views and things like that. So you can do the aerial map, so you can tell when they're coming up, when the cart pass close to the house, things like that. You don't want to be 210 yards off the tee on the right-hand side because you're pelted with golf balls because everybody slices, and that's about where that slice is going to come to. So those kind of little things, yeah.
So just on Zoom, just for our Zoom people, that was a question regarding privacy on the golf course and where the home's located and how does the cart path play into the choosing your home, I guess.
Yeah, so in golf properties, if you have to pick, tee box is the worst. Fairway is next, and the green is the best. If you're choosing those. Now, of course, you add lake to that, and the lake to a green is probably the best. But just in general, if you're on a golf hole, nobody wants to be near a tee box because they're just going to get the vile yells because somebody's just lost a $10 golf ball. When they miss a putt, they're a little quieter about it, so it's okay. And on a fairway, you're really just looking across the green grass, so it's nothing that interesting out there.
So worry about slice and.
Yeah, you don't want, like I said, 210 yards out on the right, you don't want to be, for sure.
I will say that I did have a home on the tee box and it was a hard sell.
Yeah.
It's a constant complaint. Does anyone else have a question? We have one more?
If they want to get on the course, to actually play it, before they pull the trigger, are the clubs pretty open to allowing that? The private ones, especially like Heritage Oaks, I mean, they're on private, so.
Not anymore.
Not anymore because of the
They're
list.
full. Yeah, so they're like,
Right.
"Well, we don't bother." But most, like the mandatory membership where you're going to get in, like Heritage Oaks, as you mentioned, Stony Brook, the Oak, places like that. Yeah, they'll used to do it. Some of them will do it free, but a lot of them charge a guest fee, and then they'll refund it if the people join, because the membership director is getting 100 calls a day of people going, "Oh yeah, we're interested in joining your course. You mind? Can we come play for free?" Yeah, no. So, yeah. Just a free golf.
You have time for one? How do they
Yes.
okay, thank you. How do they determine capacity? Because they're not at full capacity, but I mean, it appears to me as a known golfer that they could handle more people.
Yeah, so the gold standard in golf is 350 memberships per 18 holes of golf.
Okay.
Okay, so some places like these bundle communities like Stony Brook, they don't care because it's a developer wanting to sell as many homes as they can, and then they hand the problem off to the members when they're done building. They'll have, Stony Brook, for example, has 900 memberships for 18 holes of golf. And I just said the gold standard is 350.
Okay.
Okay, so it has its place. It's cheap or inexpensive, you know, it's about $4,000 a year. But if you play twice this week, you're probably not going to get to play a third time. Because it's on a kind of a lottery system and things like that. So 350 is your,
That's what the Oaks and like they really, they don't surpass that, right?
correct. So like the Oaks is 680 max
Okay.
golf memberships. Okay, so that way they're even under the gold standard.
Okay.
You know, but once you look at the number of memberships, you have to look at the rounds of golf, because you can have a lower membership with people that just play golf like banjies. And it can be a very busy golf club, and you can have another one that has a large membership, but they're not a real huge golf playing bunch. And you can have pretty good access to it. So it's not just the number of memberships, it's rounds of golf. It's a big thing.
Any questions? My last question was kind of not real estate related, not business related, it could be anything. Just one lesson in life that you would pass on to the people in this room, the people watching, that you learned in your time.
Go ahead. No, you were pontificating well earlier. The lessons for the kids and all that. You were good at that. Was good.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
What's one life goal or
Just one
something?
life lesson that you pass on to an aspiring realtor or person in general.
I would say that I try to treat people at their full potential, not actually where they're at. So I find in life, when you raise the ceiling height of your expectations on people, it raises them to a higher level. I think what happens in society right now is people are negative and they don't expect so much. And I think encouraging people, uplifting people, edifying people, it increases everybody's capacity to do more. On Facebook.
You sold that, you go first, so.
I would just say, be genuine and be kind. There, help people out. It's, I it's part, I was brought up in the South, and, we just help the neighbor because that's the right thing to do. So, help people, even if it doesn't mean anything back for you.
That's right.
There, it's, and it eventually will anyways. If you treat people well, it gets around, they know that, and you'll be rewarded for that in the long run. So, good. That's all.
Well, I would thank Stacy. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.